Now we are recording. Very good. So, Jean-Michel, I think I may just turn this over to you to,
Yes.
begin sharing.
Well, thank you, Chris. Thank you for hosting the call. And thanks to all of you for joining us online this afternoon. We're delighted to have you with us. I want to thank all the donors on the call. There are many for your support. We appreciate you. And, we could never do all this work without you. It's wonderful for us all at Friendship Place to know that we have a whole community behind us, helping us develop these privately funded initiatives that we target to a need that we see and keep very person-centric. And then, of course, everything else we have to do for Friendship Place. For those of you who may be joining us for the first time today, I'm Jean-Michel Giraud, the President and CEO of Friendship Place, and I've been with Friendship Place since 2006. And it really has been a privilege to serve such a great community again. I feel I'm very fortunate. A quick overview of Friendship Place, again, for the newcomers. Friendship Place is a regional homeless services organization with a national reach through best practices. We have 9 locations in DC Metro. We provide an array of homeless services starting on the street in the district, and then with some shelters, 24-hour shelters through a partnering congregation. We provide hospitality at the Welcome Center, job placement also in DC Metro, and then permanent supportive housing in the entire city in different ways. La Casa, a building for 40 men, and a large group of single adults living in their own apartments throughout the district, and the same for some families, many families living all through the district, and we are their case management providers. We help people organize their lives and rebuild and have better lives. We also operate the Brooks, a short-term housing facility based in Ward 3, where families in homelessness come to us and exit to permanent housing in 90 days on average. And I'm happy to say that we are actually averaging right now 39 days, which is amazing. And then last but not least, we have a wonderful partnership with VA to serve well over 600 households in DC Metro. These are veteran households, mostly with rapid rehousing, but also in the city itself with a form of rental subsidy, the new shallow subsidy program. I'm delighted to say that we were selected as the provider in DC Metro to provide this kind of assistance to the veterans. So, of course, Veterans First took us to the 8 counties around DC when we developed it. We will start FY21 on October 1. With a budget of 16 million. That's a lot of growth for those of you who have been following us from the earlier days. When I started, we had a budget of 1 million and 17 staff. We will have close to 130 positions when we are done staffing up at the Brooks, and roughly about 25 contractors who come every week to serve a security crew at the Brooks, a janitorial crew. So Friendship Place has grown quite a bit. We can't say enough about all our wonderful volunteers, some of whom are on the call today. We appreciate you. The volunteers add a tremendous amount to what we do at Friendship Place. And I always say that's why we're truly a community-based organization. We have this very large window on the community that helps us be more inclusive and more affirming and more welcoming. And what people tell us when they join for services, participants, is that they knew that there was a whole community behind them, and that meant so much in terms of their rebuilding. So again, all these human factors that we provide through this community, the 28 congregations affiliated with us, the schools like Rochambeau High School, which is represented today, really help us tremendously anchor down into the community so we can serve better. Friendship Place, as a homeless services organization, of course, as a rehabilitation model, and I should say models because we do like to create new models when we see a need, as I said earlier. And these models are based on the rehab values that were developed years ago by Dr. Anthony's team at Boston University and were revised through the years, of course. So to be person-centric, to be empowering, to put the most important people first, the participants, to listen to participant voices, to help us build Friendship Place and our practices. All that is key, and to let people, of course, make their own decisions always and drive their own rebuilding process so they can have a successful process and hopefully leave us behind after this, of course, so we don't build dependency. But I'm also happy to say that many people stay with us, for instance, on our speakers bureau, a number of people who are trained to speak for us and are available for those of you who might be considering organizing a community event. These speakers, along with some of the staff, are available to speak for groups. It might be in your living room, or it might be in your church or synagogue, a larger group. We are available, and a lot of our work is done through these presentations because you have to explain to people where you're going as an organization, where the city and the region is going, and even in many ways what the national trends are, in order for people to come and join us and help us with this. So it's a very active process. We have on the staff typically between 10 and 15% of employees who have life experience in some form of homelessness, who have lived through trauma. And then some of us are family members, and it's my case, some of you know that. My brother was homeless here right at the gate of Georgetown University many years ago. And so that's how inclusive we are. We like to have everybody at the table making the important decisions, and particularly people with life experience. So COVID, of course, has changed us, continues to change us. We went into the new teleworking model 25 weeks ago, we're counting, very suddenly over the weekend of March 13th into March 16th. Not quite knowing what we would do, frankly, but knowing that it was time to protect our staff, protect our participants, and change the way we worked. We have adapted to this teleworking model for those of us who are able to telework. And these are the folks in administration, in development, the case managers who coordinate resources and services for people remotely now, working through virtually and by text and email and phone, of course. We are placing people in jobs during COVID, which I think is amazing. We placed 7 people just last week, and Aim Higher will actually exceed its goals for FY20, which is terrific. There are 4 teams who actually report to work every day, and they are the 2 outreach teams. So the privately funded outreach team operated in Upper Northwest and in Georgetown through funding from the Georgetown Business Improvement District. We've been in Georgetown for about 13 months now. And then the team that's funded by the city and reaches out to youth all over the district. These 2 teams are on the ground. We've made sure that people are protected. They have equipment that they use, of course, the mask. We check morale and status every day, making sure that people are ready to serve. And I have to say that this outreach work is going extremely well, and that from report, we are seeing more people on the streets. So for those of you who are based in Upper Northwest, I'm sure this is no surprise. There are more people who are hesitant to go into the big shelters that the city operates because there have been COVID cases there. And you are seeing, I'm sure in your neighborhoods, more people in some locations. I'm even hearing as of late that the encampments are growing in Upper Northwest where they have been. So that's what we're seeing on the street. We're trying to keep people safe. We're doing the very best we can to give people access to resources. The drop-in center has been officially closed since March because it's too small to operate, but we are passing out mail twice a week. We are case managing for our regulars, again, via email and phone. And of course, out of that location, we deploy teams supporting folks in the apartments with Anne Frank House, for instance, or the HUD funded apartments, so that everybody gets enough food, gets their medication, is supported emotionally throughout these locations where single adults live in Upper Northwest. It's really key. And then looking at tasked the team recently, we have 3 program chiefs. The regulars on the call know them well by now: Sean, Carrie, Catherine at the Brooks. And I've asked Sean and Carrie to take a look again at aging in place at Friendship Place. So it's going to be part of the vision going into FY21. What are we doing that's special, that's effective to keep our older residents not only safe, but with us longer in the Friendship Place community? And the thought came from the fact that in the past we've had transitions into nursing homes that sometimes have not gone so well. Going from a community like Friendship Place to a medical model, as we say technically in the field, can be an adjustment. So we're going to look at that out of the Welcome Center and within permanent supportive housing at the city level. The other 2 teams operating, of course, day to day are the Brooks and La Casa. The Brooks we opened during COVID. And I'm happy to say that Catherine has just received from the Department of Human Services a Human Services Heroes Award for 2020 for opening the Brooks so well during COVID. So yes, round of applause for Catherine, who is out there in the trenches and doing wonderful work with her team. The other team operating every day, La Casa, and again, seamless transition into this new arrangement that we have. People showing up, protecting themselves, protecting our residents, and establishing all these partnerships to bring extra food even in the building so that our vulnerable folks don't have to go out so much to shop. And I have been really, really impressed with these results and just with the way we are able to show up as a staff and as volunteers at Friendship Place to support these over 3,000 people we serve now every year. The work has to continue, it has to be done. And there are new challenges, obviously, but we're trying to look at COVID also as an opportunity to draw lessons learned. And I know already that what we're going through will inform our decision-making process to build the new Friendship Place when we're able to reconvene one day in the offices. I know that COVID is changing us. Some of the lessons learned I wanted to share this morning are certainly the fact that we are getting really comfortable working virtually. Case in point, this gathering today of people from all over DC Metro and online together sharing. We have done that, for instance, for our all staff meetup. We've had 2 of those. And these staff meetings were wonderful when we met face to face, but they were also taking a lot of extra staff time, commuting to them, committing to a full day. We are now very targeted, and within an hour plus, we're able to get a message across that's really effective. At a record for one of those meetings, we had 98 people on the call, which I think is amazing. So we're learning how to work using technology and how to work better. And I think that's going to impact tremendously on Friendship Place. Friendship Place operates in 9 locations, for instance, at this point, and there are some choices that have to be made. For instance, the 2 offices above Rutledge will close at the end of this month because the building is being rehabbed and we had to exit. But instead of renting new offices, we decided to be careful and wait. Typically for a commercial lease, you need a 5-year lease. At least it's been our experience. We feel that the market is going to adjust. So we've asked the development team and the Aim Higher team to be flexible. Aim Higher will move to the Welcome Center, and development will join us at admin on Calvert Street, because we have folks who have chosen to telework for the long term, and we have extra space now. So we are thinking along these lines, trying to do the best we can to meet the demand for offices, but at the same time to be practical and to save, of course. One thing that we did around June that was very effective, I think, is that we surveyed the staff as to their preferences in terms of teleworking or not teleworking. Roughly a third of the staff said that they would like to telework if possible at 100%. Another third said that it would like to be at 50-50, 50% in the office, 50% at home. And then it's really graduated down to less than 10 people out of 67 answering, responding to the survey, saying that they absolutely have to be in an office. And we understand that we have parents who have maybe too much distraction at home. We want to be absolutely sensitive to all the employees and do the best we can to honor their wishes as we plan for the future. We've also asked every program, every division to develop a return to the office plan that is being implemented incrementally, with the idea that we absolutely need to keep everybody safe. That's, of course, the number one consideration in this. I'm excited also to share 3 initiatives that are really driving us this summer, and we'll go into the rest of the FY21 for us and beyond. And they are the Anti-Racism Task Force, the reactivation of the LGBTQ inclusion work group, and then strategic planning. So starting with anti-racism, we had been working on racial equity for 2.5 years at Friendship Place, looking internally, looking externally, sharing positive messaging, growing in that direction. We were actually invited by the National Alliance to End Homelessness to facilitate a workshop. I did that in Oakland in February, and Sol, who was with our racial equity officer, was a panel member along with 2 other homeless services providers. So we've done a lot of work in that area. It's a courageous look at who we are, how we do things, what the conditions are like out there, and what causes this systemic racism that we are working to end. Based on the events in Minnesota and what followed in the spring, I approached the board and the staff proposing a new vision, and it's an anti-racist vision. So it's more proactive. It is geared toward action steps. And so we convened this new anti-racist task force that is going to help us stay on target with these goals and have an impact that will be stronger, both at the local and regional levels, but also at the national level as we get invited, hopefully, to present our work at conferences. And then along with this, again, because of what's going on out there, for those of you who follow the news on the LGBTQ community and some of the new pressures that have come on that community from the government, really, I decided that it would be good to look at, again, more targeted work in that area and to reactivate this group. Both groups have great leadership, have developed mission statements, and are in the process of developing goals. While we're on anti-racism also, the anti-racist training will start hopefully next week, I'm being told, and that is based, of course, on the issues we have seen around the Brooks, these racist statements that a few of our families have been subjected to, and we want to make sure that we respond to this very strongly. We want to, for all of you who will take the training, to feel that you're comfortable speaking up when you see something and doing something when you hear something, because that's being anti-racist. It's being more proactive, more assertive. We have received a lot of support from actually some of you on the call, which is wonderful. The Congregations Committee is developing a special initiative. Thank you, Joel, for doing that, Joel and Ann, where we are reaching out to congregations to help them get engaged. I've reached out to Laura Zeilinger, Mary Che's office, and the hope there is that many positive voices, and they are the great majority of, I'm happy to say, will help drown out these negative voices around us at the Brooks, but also further out where we serve. I've said that we have adjusted really to this new mode of operation, to the fact that we felt we could actually start our strategic planning process. So this is a process, for those of you who may not know, that is going to help us set high-level goals for Friendship Place, work on our vision, work on our mission, look again at our infrastructure, but look, of course, at the opportunities out there, given what the new trends are going to be. And we have retained a great consultant, Tracy Cecil of Tracy Cecil Consulting, to help us with this. The work started last month. Some of you are linked to this work on the call, I know, so thank you for that. Tracy brings not only a lot of experience in project management and strategic planning, but also 10 years as a deputy director to Schroeder Stradley at N Street Village. So we're very excited for the first time to have somebody who has so much experience in a leadership role in the field to help guide us through this process. We welcome your ideas. This is a time when, you know, everybody should feel free to share, hopefully good ideas, but also concerns. It's all right. We need to be very transparent, and we need to have these robust conversations about Friendship Place, where we are and where we need to go. I don't want to go on too long, but I want to share some exciting news about FY21, which will start, as you know, on October 1. And that is that for the first time, we will be able to fund a Chief Outcomes Measurement and Compliance Officer's position to help us with risk management, evaluation, and compliance. That position will join the executive team, and we're in the process of recruiting our first chief for that. And then for advocacy, we have decided to fund a part-time advocacy position. And this time, the vision for it is that this position will be a community organizer. So be ready for some, again, robust conversations on advocacy. We're going to switch gears a little bit. I know that we've been very diplomatic advocates, and we're going to push a little harder this time, inviting into the Friendship Place community a true organizer, somebody who can help us have these more robust and difficult conversations with key people so we can move the system forward. We will focus, of course, on anti-racism, LGBTQ inclusion. We want to look at domestic violence also to help the city system move forward in that area, and then do some budget advocacy with the DC Council. So I'm very excited about this new position. We haven't had an advocacy position in several years, and we're making room for it in this budget. So far, we have 30,000 in the budget for a part-time position, but we are looking for private funds, and this may very well end up being a full-time position. So again, I want to thank you all for your support. This is the long-term Friendship Place. With some questions you might have, or just feedback if you'd like to share.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you again, Jean-Michel. And if you have any questions, please put it in the chat bar. I have a few, as always, to seed to start. Here's one. I don't even have to use my seeded question. Is the anti-racist training open to anyone? Jean-Michel?
It is, absolutely. You know how we like to train at Friendship Place. Neighbors, board members, community members, participants, staff, everybody is welcome. So we'll share this information with you, probably through the development office. Chris, I think that would be practical. And please join us. We need a lot of you in this effort to make things better around the Brooks and beyond.
Right. So I'll build on that question. What other things can community members do when they're confronted with racism, particularly around racism focused on the people we serve? What can community members do?
Well, speak up and do something, right? And that's, everybody's got to get comfortable with that. It's, in the past, it might have been one thing to think, oh, that's just a terrible statement, and not say anything because maybe we were polite or something. But with anti-racism, we have to get beyond that. We all have to get comfortable, looking, for instance, at white fragility, white guilt, things like that. And beyond that, into, well, you know, speaking up and saying things like, you know, what you're saying strikes me as racist. And so, and what we're doing with this work, and the idea came from a meeting we had with Seoul, with at the Anti-Racism Center at American University. And AU was the first university in the country to have such center. They said, when we deal with people, we don't say, you're racist, because we don't want people to recoil into a corner. We separate their statement or thoughts from who they are as a person, so we can actually leave them whole, but help them see that they have bias and that they're expressing a form of bias that's uncomfortable. And, you know, be aware of microaggression. Microaggression is a statement sometimes, or just somebody using a word but getting really self-conscious, and everybody around them knows that they are, and this word is racialized somehow. It might be, I'll share, for instance, what happened to one of our staff who is Latino in front of the Brooks, and this older gentleman, as he was, our staff was helping a father empty his trunk. An older gentleman said, by and not knowing our staff said, you know, I like Latinos. Well, that makes people uncomfortable, because why would it be the first statement you make to somebody who appears to be from the Latino community, but you don't know them? Things, microaggressions take different forms and go away as people become more comfortable with facing racism and doing something about it. So a level of comfort there for people, for all, to get to a level of comfort that's sufficient to actually have the conversations in a natural way, an open way, just like to deal with any other societal issue that's, you know, linked to everyday life. You know, people can do, I think.
Thank you.
Of course, there have been more practical things. Some people have put signs around the park where some of the aggressions, really, they were not microaggressions. The N-word was used with the family on 2 occasions, actually. We've put signs around the park. The congregations are activating. I know there was a sermon in the park from the folks at National Methodist Church. The pastor was there. But the issues continue. We just had an aggression, verbal assaulting 2 weeks ago. A family, a mom and dad were smoking a cigarette at 10:30 with their children in front of the building and taking a cigarette break. A neighbor felt they were allowed, used the N-word and some other very, very harsh comments. So the issues are still there, unfortunately, also.
I have turned off my camera because it appeared it was impacting bandwidth. So I'll audio here. How throughout COVID, how has our relationship been with the city and what their expectations are in terms of services? How would you categorize it?
It's been an excellent partnership. You know, the Department of Human Services is a great partner. At the Brooks, for instance, they were so well researched in the new model, so supportive. We deal with Jenna Savasco, who runs the short-term housing program for the city at DHS. So things have been really clear. The directives come in on a regular basis. At the beginning, of course, they were very simple, and then they were graduated up to more sophisticated measures that we needed to put in place. At the Brooks, for instance, we take everybody's temperature going into the building. Everybody wears masks. And so the city was very clear as to what it needed to see, down to a recent order of 2 or 3 weeks ago from the mayor saying that if people were visiting, I think it was 19 states where the numbers in COVID were very high, they should be quarantined if they were part of city contracts. In other words, let's say a case manager at the Brooks decided to go to North Carolina for the weekend. Upon return to the city, that person could not serve in the program for 2 weeks. So just to give you an idea of how precise the city has been with what it expects to see. And, you know, you can't ask for a better partner. I've been in this, as you know, for a long time. You can't ask for a better partner, but the partner who tells you exactly what to do in cases like that. Discipline is required, and the goal, of course, is to keep everybody safe. I'm happy to say that we've had a couple of cases, actually 2 on the staff and 2 on the consumer side, and the 4 people are healthy today. So we haven't lost anybody at Friendship Place.
That's a very impressive number that, you know, given all that's going on in the city, to have only 4 people in our community be diagnosed with COVID. What challenges are the street outreach teams finding as they go out, and how are they helping people that are on the street, and how are they protecting themselves when they go out on the street?
Yes. Well, you know, they're, like the rest of us, absolutely mission-driven and passionate about the work. I come from direct services, as you know, myself, and you really have to have that to show up every day and decide to go on the street to serve people in the middle of a pandemic. So kudos to them. It's exceptional work, and I think they're fantastic. The way we work with them is, again, the city requires us to have a check-in every morning with each team member, and Sean, the chief, actually does that. Chief on that side. We ask people how they are feeling, and if they have any symptoms, of course, they cannot go out to serve. We've had to quarantine a few people due to exposure they thought they had, whether they were on that team or other team, and we've asked these folks to stay home for a couple of weeks. On the outreach team, people get ready to serve, go out with masks to hand out. They wear their own mask, of course, and approach people on a different basis. We've asked them to have social distancing when approaching people, even in the encampments, to make sure that, you know, they have a really good perspective around themselves, so that nobody comes too close. Also, who they might not have seen earlier. It's a very sort of, you know, moving environment. It's a natural environment that we don't control. We have to think of these things when we coach staff. We've also made it so that time on the street is down to 4 hours per person per day, staffing accordingly, so we could come up with the coverage that we need on the street, but also in an intent to limit the level of stress that each person is experiencing. And we've actually brought new staff onto the teams in the last few months. Friendship Place is hiring throughout, and on that team we have new team members who have joined us. And so some of the goals on the street, of course, is to make sure that people's needs are met. They know where to get food. They know where to wash up, take a shower, how to protect themselves in the encampment if it's a very sort of close-knit shared area, where to get tested if need be, to go into the shelter resources that the city offers if they choose to be made more comfortable outside, as I mentioned earlier, because a lot of people choose to camp these days, and you know, everybody makes their own decisions. But that's the work we do. For young people, it's been a bit different. More of the young people were able to go into households through friends, you know, in that age group of 18 to 24. Friends are important, of course, and key in terms of the resources that they represent for each person. So a lot of young people were able to go into households, shared households, group housing, and we've been supporting them with food cards that we present at the door. Often in these households, people are encouraged to go in, or even are told that if they go out as a guest, they cannot come back. So we had to adapt to that to make sure that people were well fed, that the households could have sustainable budget, because of course with one or two extra person, the household being already on a very tight budget, we had to make sure that these households could continue to operate, and by providing cards, which are also available, of course, on the street to the folks who are camping, so that they can go to Safeway, for instance, and buy the food that they need.
We do have a question in the chat room about what are our plans for the Welcome Center? Are we waiting for a vaccine? Do we have any other thoughts as to what we might be able to do before there's a vaccine?
Well, the Welcome Center is closed in terms of the physical site, but as I mentioned, the services continue remotely for case management, passing out mails, communications with the psychiatrist, Dr. Williams, with the Unity team, which provides medical services, even though they're not on site at this time. They are in other sites where people could get the protective equipment and have the space they needed for social distancing. So all that work continues. As I mentioned, Aim Higher will be co-locating some of the time at the Welcome Center, so that will be different when we reopen. The Welcome Center as a reopening plan that we are not implementing yet because we don't feel that the numbers regionally have gone down enough. Particularly, you know, in the Maryland and Virginia side, there are some concerns. The district numbers look better. So as soon as we can, we will reopen gradually. But again, it will not be the full staff or volunteer crew. To give you an idea of what we're doing at admin, for instance, is that some of us go some days, and we know that we cannot go other days because there would be too many of us in the office. So we'll operate on that basis when we reopen the doors of the center, making sure that we have enough staffing, but not too much staffing. And then along with that we have a few participants at a time, the way it's done now in the stores and elsewhere, but not too many participants, so we don't have a risk as needed.
We have another question in the chat room. I've heard that many of the city-operated shelters are not open right now. Is the street outreach team advising people who they come in contact with on the street about any additional shelter resources?
Yes, and also the city has opened alternative sites, for instance, for COVID quarantining. So we feel that generally the level of services that we're getting in terms of shelter from the city is sufficient, let's just say. And for now, that's about where we are on that. But again, a lot of people are staying outside, and as long as the weather is good, I think it's probably not a bad idea at all if they can, you know, be all right for the time being out there and feel safer. everything everybody does to prevent transmission helps in some way.
Obviously, this whole situation has had a significant financial impact. What do we see as the future of those who are experiencing homelessness? How much is that going to grow as a result of this pandemic and the economic hit we've taken, evictions, et cetera, employment? What are we foreseeing, and how might we respond?
Yes, well, that's a great question. Obviously, we are trying to imagine what we're going to see because we're not there yet, but we know that as things unfold into FY21, into calendar 21, we are likely to see a much greater need, obviously, for job placement. We're already seeing some of that. So we are going to staff a third position for Aim Higher out of private funds. We are actually almost ready to hire somebody. I think that's going to be key for us to retool and look at specific, very targeted needs, the way we did really in the aftermath of the 2008 crisis, which brought us Aim Higher at Friendship Place and also brought us all the rapid rehousing work that we do eventually. So I think it's going to go in that direction. Right now, there's a moratorium on evictions in the city. Other cities in the country have already lifted their moratorium, and the results are already there in those locations. When the mayor decides to lift the moratorium on evictions, we're going to see a lot of new families, we think, coming our way, and not just through the Brooks. The Brooks is for families qualifying for that kind of service and qualifying after that for rapid rehousing into permanent supportive housing. You remember, for those of you who have been with us a long time, that the privately funded solutions that we created, Aim Higher, Before 30, direct housing back in the day, all were targeted for people who were falling through the cracks, who are simply not eligible for what VA or the city have to offer. And so we're looking at that again, and we have sort of a spending menu, if you want, in the new budget, a lot with pockets to draw from that we already know we will need. And the work will entail more job placement, more housing work, more stabilization work. You know, these wonderful, very open-ended initiatives that we love to develop, looking at the person, the family, and immediate needs today. Do you need a food card? Do you need money for medication? Do you need money to save your storage unit content? And on, transportation. And so it's going to be a lot of that work. We did that at Family Connect a few years ago with the Amazon funding. And we're going to have to work in a very nimble way. We're already thinking that the Direct Housing Fund, of course, is going to be back in FY21. We had to close it a while ago because we had exhausted it. But the need is going to be there. It's going to be greater. It's hard to put an actual figure on it because of the proportion of what we're looking at, which is so phenomenal, really, what the need is going to be. But we are preparing, and we need to meet the demand somehow. That's coming out.
Yeah. You mentioned, Jean-Michel, we staffed up quite a bit with the Brooks, and we've filled other positions during this crisis. How hard has it been to really do team building when you're onboarding people virtually like that? What sort of tools have we used in order to make people feel part of the Friendship Place team?
Yes, that's a great question. We started a coaching program with the International Coach Federation at Friendship Place this spring, and it's pro bono coaching up to the executive level. I had a coach I worked with for 8 sessions back in the spring. And, just to give you an idea of how open we are to new practices, to engage staff, we are really blessed with a wonderful executive team of chiefs who are very open to the new ways. I call it modern day HR. So it's not just about the old HR. I knew when I started, in the trenches, keeping the organization safe and keeping the employees doing what they need to do. It's a lot more than that. It's about personal growth. It's about well-being. It's about self-care. It's about listening to people up and down the organization type of thing, and laterally too. And so those ideas, we put them all together in the spring and see how they would adapt virtually. We've surveyed the staff. I've said that. We've decided to do things like express even more gratitude. I think we always like to show that we're thankful and grateful at Friendship Place, but expressing gratitude, taking the time to thank people even more often has really been important. Making sure that people's needs are met at home. For instance, the moms and dads who now have not only to do their work at home, but also have to supervise children as they do that, with child care being less accessible, summer camps being gone. So really to try to imagine as an executive team what it is that people need and how we can show up better as a leadership team. And of course, with the goal that everybody shows up better during the pandemic, and that the experience is actually, as an employee in direct service, let's say at Friendship Place, you feel that you're being supported, that the organization cares about you, that it wants you to take care of yourself, and it's trying to make the work you're doing as possible as can be, and as effective as can be. So it's been the orientation, and it's been really exciting to have these conversations. Some of you already know that we have Andrea McDade now, who has replaced Janice as our new Chief Talent, Diversity, and Inclusion Officer. And she has a certification in HR at the highest level, and it's very, very open-minded and creative. And she's already had a tremendous impact on our practices since she joined in May. So we're really fortunate to have her.
And I would definitely want to build on that. I think what we've learned through all of this is the importance of resiliency and flexibility. And even this webinar series is an example of finding new ways to work. I think we've all come to, I think it's surprising how quickly we've all managed to adapt to being where we are when we're working now. And I think it is just flexibility on all fronts. We have time for one or two more questions if anyone would like to ask or place that in the chat room. If not, I think that I'm going to take 2 seconds to pitch, and I'll turn on my camera for this now. I hope it doesn't slow down the bandwidth too much. My camera should be on now. We do have a number of upcoming events. So while you think about questions you might want to place in the chat room, I'll make our pitch on that. We do have our annual breakfast. It'll be a virtual event, and it'll take place next Thursday, the 10th at 8:30 a.m. It's going to be online this year. Obviously, we always prefer to be together at Washington Hebrew Congregation each May. Sadly, that wasn't meant to be this year. And so we will be doing so in this virtual format. So if you are available and interested in attending, please drop me an email at Rutledge, and I'll make sure you are signed up to get the link. What we'll do is send a link to the event a few days beforehand. We already have about 200 people signed up. So that's actually very exciting given how new and different this is. Likewise, you may know that we do our symposium every April. This year we did not because of, well, the obvious reasons, but we're going to do that online also, and that is October the 8th. Generally, we do that in the evenings. However, it appears, it looks like we're going to move that to noon on October 8th. The thought being that come 6:30 p.m., people are rather tired of being online and being on Zoom or WebEx or Event Hub type links. So if we're going to move this, again, I think the expectation is noon. We have to clear 1 or 2 more hurdles to make sure that's the case. But the symposium this year will focus, obviously, we'll talk about COVID and its impact. But the initial topic was that intersection of corporate and nonprofit support and how we can all work together to help people move from housing instability to a place of stability. And I think that topic is still valid, only now with an overlay of COVID. Likewise, then we have our annual walk, which again, we've decided is going to be virtual. We think it would be irresponsible to gather a couple hundred people out on the National Mall. I don't even know that it's legal at this point. But we are looking at that same weekend we intended, which is November 14th, potentially putting on a virtual online show prior to that, and then encouraging people to go out and walk, although certainly people are able to walk at any time to show their support. But look for more information about that. Like I said, after the breakfast, a lot of these things will fall into place here. We do have, again, time for one more question or two more questions. Otherwise, I may turn it to Jean-Michel to say any parting comments. Okay.
Do we have any questions?
I don't see anything, so it's probably just as well now, Jean-Michel, if you want to offer any closing thoughts.
Absolutely. I want to thank you all for joining us online today. It's great to see you. For those of you who had your video on, I want to thank you for your support of Friendship Place through the years. We need you, so please keep that support coming. Please consider joining our anti-racist LGBTQ including initiatives. I think there are going to be very exciting things coming out of this, and they're really reshaping the way we're thinking about advocacy at Friendship Place toward these action steps, toward moving the system forward the best way we can as a homeless services organization in DC Metro and beyond. For strategic planning, again, we're looking at setting some high-level goals for the organization, looking at new populations we may need to serve. Some people have said more work with veterans, more new work with returning citizens, new work, additional work with youth. So we need to hear what your ideas are, regardless of the fact that you're linked directly to strategic planning or not. Some of you are on the committee, I know. But all of you, please call me. My work cell is 202-213-1318. You know, I love to hear from you and chat. You can also email me. Let's have these conversations. I'd like to hear, from you about your idea of Friendship Place for the next 5 years and beyond, because this is such a turning point, and what an amazing time to do this work when we're already changing Friendship Place due to COVID. Please attend our fall events. They're going to be exciting events. They're going to be all virtual. We love to have you with us for those very special moments that we share together. And again, thank you so much for everything you do for us. Have a great rest of the day. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.